Supervisors meeting of April 22nd, 2008. Would you please rise to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And in what is for my term as chair, a historic moment, we have no announcements, nothing to report out, and no closed sessions to report from, and that's a first since
Where we
January.
say no action taken.
There's no action taken because there was no meeting to report on. We now move to the consent agenda. These are items to be expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted on by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff, or interested party may request removal. Is there any request for removing any of these items from the consent?
Item number 4, Mr. Chair.
Item number 4 is hereby removed from consent. Any others? All right, do I hear a motion on the remaining items?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion, second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's 5-0. Number 4, Supervisor Tryon.
This is a resolution honoring James Kowski, honoring the rank of Eagle Scout. Is James here? Not here. Okay, then I will make sure. We have a representative. Come on forward, Pauline. Now, does James not have a dinner coming up?
He does. It is May 6th at Brett Park High School,
That's right.
and then there'll be a reception following. Oh my God, my brain just died. I can't remember. But yes, he did a wonderful job.
Is James in school?
Yes, that's why he's not here.
Why didn't he play hooky today?
Well, you know, the Boy Scout motto and law and oath.
Like a truant officer in there. Anyway, well, this is a resolution honoring James. It says, whereas Boy Scouts of America is a values-based organization offering young men the benefits and opportunities rooted in values such as fairness, self-respect, community service, and high standards of conduct. That's not the way it was when I was a boy.
Oh, yes, it was.
And whereas James serves as the king of the rank of Eagle Scout, is a member of Troop 353, Angels Camp. James has earned 43 merit badges. And whereas James Eagle Project was beautification of St. Patrick's Catholic Church grounds in Angels Camp, that's almost an answer. The leadership positions include Troop Patrol Leader, Troop Order of the Arrow, Troop Representative, District Order of the Arrow Chapter, Troop Order of the Arrow,
Hello.
Live Ceremony Team, and National Order of the Arrow Leadership Seminar. And whereas James is the senior at Brett Park High School and attends Spartan College of Aeronautics and Technology, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And now therefore be a result of the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors. Did we take a motion?
Not yet, but you actually held that up.
Item 4 be approved.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Let's do this before we present. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors do hereby extend commendation of the highest order to James for his outstanding achievements along with sincere best wishes for success in all his future endeavors, including technology.
Yes, we need that. Thank you very much. I'll make sure he gets this.
We will now take a 4-minute recess till 9:10, where we'll begin public comments.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll call the meeting back into session. We now call for public comments. Encourage people to try to limit their comments to 5 minutes per speaker and 15 minutes per topic. Anybody up? Come on in.
Hi, the real reason I'm here, my name is Pauline Iwata, and I'm representing the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life. I won't take 15 minutes. But I'm here to applaud the citizens of Calaveras County for their generosity and support for the Relay for Life. To date, we've raised close to $90,000, and in a community of 47,000 people, that's amazing. So it is my sincere hope that we would raise over $200,000 this year, bringing our total for our county in the state of California to be the first ones to raise $1 million for the American Cancer Society in a short time of 6 years. So this Saturday, I'm hoping, I know that I have 3 of the 5 supervisors out there. I hope that I would get the other 2 supervisors to come out. We start at 10 a.m. It is open to the public. I encourage the audience, I encourage the citizens of Calaveras County to please come out and celebrate and remember and fight back those people that have fought the battle of cancer. And it will be this Saturday, April 26th at 10 a.m.
I understand you're a survivor, a fellow survivor,
I am.
and that you were one of the people who started Relay for Life in this county. I wanted to thank you for
Unfortunately, I
that.
have that dubious title.
Well, you've done great work, and we all
Thank you
for
very
that.
much. But yes, please do come out. It is open to the public. There'll be an opening ceremony at 10 a.m. for survivors and caregivers. And then at 8 p.m., we highly encourage everyone to come out for the lighting ceremony, where we light bags in memory of people that have either survived or passed away from cancer. So I do encourage everyone to please participate. That's it.
Thank you.
Any questions? I've got 14 more minutes. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Pauline.
Any other speakers? Yes, sir.
A very brief follow-up and support for her. It's understood that under the Brown Act, you have difficulty getting all 5 members to an event such as that. It is okay.
Because it's a public event.
Then I was going to suggest that each one of you at least appoint someone to be there. But if you could be there, that'd be even better.
We've been there in the past, and I think we will continue to go to this public event. Anybody else like to speak? Mr. Anderson.
I, too, will be brief. Ed Anderson from Burson, also Director, Foothill Fire Protection District. I am pleased to announce that we're going to have a grand opening of the fire station in Burson, located at Burson Road and Highway 12, Station 1, on May 18th from 1 to 3. I'd like to thank everybody that supported us in getting this station put up, and I'd like to see a lot of faces there. We have a good team on board, a very full staff of 25 firefighters, and doing an excellent job under the Chief, Michael Siligo. So I'd like to see everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Would anybody else like to speak under public comment? Surely there's somebody with something to say. All right. Quiet day out there.
I went for the lambs.
Okay. We actually now must wait another 5 minutes for the In-Home Supportive Services Governing Board. We'll reconstitute ourselves as that at 9:20. So if anybody changes their mind and has 5 minutes of fill time, you're welcome to get up and comment on anything that you might think of. Otherwise, take a break.
Take a break.
All right, never mind, we're taking a break. Okay, meeting will come back into session, however, not as a Board of Supervisors, but as the IHSS Public Authority, In-Home Supportive Services. Francine?
Good morning. Francine Osborne, Human Resources. The item before you we're pleased to present is a new and revised contract between the county and SEIU in regards to in-home support service workers. If you remember, the original agreement had some issues that needed to be resolved. We have resolved that now. We've been working with CalWorks and Human Services and the Public Authority Manager, and we've all worked together to bring this before you. So we do have a 60-day requirement by the state in order to get the second salary increase in place, and that's why this is before you today, so we can keep in line with the agreements that we reached.
Any questions from the board? I have just one. As you may recall, we had a person speak a couple of times, and the goal here was to try to have an agreement that was both consistent with state rules and obligations and economically equivalent to what the previous agreement had been. This accomplishes that, I assume.
It does. Actually, we did get approval from the state early on, and so we were able to put the wage increase based upon the CalWorks and Human Services Director getting the first increase in place on March 1st. So they have received the first increase. Where we made some changes to was the salary increase in the second year to accommodate for some differences. But because of the short time period in the first year, we do have a little bit less of an expense in the cumulative cost over the 3-year period.
Okay. Do I hear a motion or any
Well, let's see, we need to go through, so first off, I'll approve the minutes.
Yes.
Here.
Yes, I got it.
And then we do the public.
We have a motion to
I'll
approve the
move
minutes.
approval of the minutes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Do we have public comments on, for the in-home supportive services? Any public comment?
Mr. Chair, I then move the resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the County of Calaveras In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority and Service Employees International Union, Local 250, from April 1st, 2007 through August 31st, 2010. I move it.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. This meeting of the Public Authority Governing Board for in-home supportive services is hereby adjourned, and we move back to the board agenda, Board of Supervisors agenda, which should be
In 5 minutes.
in 5 minutes. Yes,
4 minutes. You go, Steve.
we're going way too fast. This is government moving at warp speed today, folks.
What is the year 2-0-1-0?
It's something only those who have been here a long time remember. That's or a terminology.
Thank you.
We will resume at 9:30. On item 8, discussion and possible action regarding the introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 8.20 of the Calaveras County Code, well construction and destruction. This would be Brian Moss, Environmental Management Agency.
Good morning, Brian Moss, Environmental Management. Today we are introducing the redraft of Title 8, Chapter 8.20, Well Construction and Destruction. Staff is recommending that the Board of Supervisors approve the introduction of the attached Wells Ordinance redraft. Once approved, the document will be brought back before the Board on May 6, 2008 for adoption. At that time, should the Board accept the introduction today, Jason Bateser, who's Manager of Environmental Health, will be present in my absence, as I will be out of the county, for any further questions. Also attached in this document is for your review, is a notice of exemption from CEQA that applies to the proposed ordinance, as was done for the original document in 1998. Staff is further recommending that the Board find that the ordinance is exempt from CEQA under categorical exemption, Class 7, Section 15307. Staff worked with County Council on this, Janice Elliott. And as the board is also aware, this is a follow-up to our March 11th study session wherein well drillers had an opportunity to come and comment on the document. And with that said, also, there was one issue that we needed to take care of in your packet, and that is your cover page talks about an ordinance of adopting Chapter 8.20. It's actually an ordinance amending Chapter 8.20, so I'm going to just ask you, Carol, for the board's review. That said,
I read into the record amending Chapter 8.2.
that would be correct. Amending is correct.
Are there any questions from the board?
And you did a nice job of outreaching to the community environment.
Thank you.
Were there any things that came in after our study session that altered your thinking in any way about this?
No, actually, the only thing that you can see that we changed from the study session was the requirement for pre-perforated casing. I did discuss that a little bit in further detail with one of our well drillers and came to the conclusion that indeed I thought it was a better idea to leave that requirement out. They can go ahead and slot casing on site.
All right.
And what? Slot casing on site?
Slot casing on site.
All right. If there are no further questions, is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair. With the introduction of an ordinance and waiver of reading amending Chapter 8.20 of the Calaveras County Code.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Good work.
Thank you.
We now have item 9. This is discussion possible action regarding a minute order authorizing the chair to sign a letter opposing Senate Bill 1617, which imposes fee assessments on the owners of structures located in state responsibility areas in order to fund fire protection and fire prevention activities. What appears to be yet another shift of burden from state to local sources.
Not only a shift of burden from state to local, Mr. Chair, but a shift of burden from focusing the burden on rural counties in the SRAs, subsidizing, in effect, CAL FIRE activities throughout the state and not merely in the areas where we count on them most to serve.
Kind of an odd circumstance to find a cash cow, but
I will move the minute order, Mr. Chair.
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. If you want to give me an opportunity.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to remark that you have my support. Carry on.
Thank you, Ed. It's nice to have your imprimatur on this.
Well, we can now take the vote, Ed.
Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's 5-0. Well, it would appear that we need to wait until 10 o'clock to have board matters and appointments. This will be item 10, Children and Family First Commission, first 5 appointments, and Fish and Game Commission. So we are now in recess for the next 24 minutes. We are now on item 10, discussion and possible action regarding a minute order appointing applicants to fill vacancies, 3, on the Children and Families First Commission for terms to December 2010, and the Fish and Game Commission, District 5, for a term to expire on December 2008. And I believe this is Karen Pekarsik from the First 5.
Good morning. I am Karen Pekarsik from First 5, Calaveras. You have a minute order asking for 3 appointments to the First 5 Commission, and we, as a commission, sent a letter on March 6th to Chairman Walensky, asking that 2 of the applicants for the commission not be considered for appointment. We made a concerted effort and went out to community groups and community meetings to invite individuals to participate in the commission and become commissioners. And 2 very involved children's advocates, very strong advocates, and professionals in the community applied. And they also happen to be grantees of First 5 Calaveras. So this kind of comes under that no good deed goes unpunished. I've talked to them about their request to be on the commission, and they said they were just trying to help. But we do have concerns that they are direct recipients of funding, and that funding directly supports their salaries. And the funding is in place through 2011, which is beyond the length of the term that they would be appointed to. So they would have to recuse themselves from virtually every fiscal decision. And that would make it challenging to our commission for operations. I also did check with Assistant County Counsel David Sears before I had the conversation with them and before I sent the letter to the board chair to make sure that we were not off base in this request. And he said that it would be a reasonable request that we not have them appointed to the commission. So the letters request that Nancy Tiffany from Head Start and Marcia Larrabee from the Children's Dental Project not be appointed to the commission and allow us to continue recruitment of commissioners to fill those 2 slots. We do have one application from Shannon, and my mind's going blank right now, that we would like that person appointed to a full commissioner status. That would be
Althea Shannon Crawford?
Shannon Crawford. Okay. Yes, she's a parent in the community. We would like that appointment fulfilled and allow us to continue to recruit for 1 more member commissioner and 1 alternate commissioner.
All right. Before proceeding, I'd like the opportunity to make a comment, being a member of the First 5 Commission. We've, in the past and before your time, this commission had a number of moments where it really was conflicted, although that hadn't been fully defined. And I want to thank you for your great and, in my view, heroic effort in the face of 2 of the people who have been most involved in programs, who are friends of ours, and yet your attention to this kind of thing will help maintain the integrity of this organization, and I very much appreciate it. I think this is the hardest kind of decision to make. Very well qualified, great people, good friends, but with a conflict that shouldn't be part of the deliberations of First 5. So congratulations on having the temerity and the good principles to bring this to our attention.
They understand what you're recommending?
Yes, we actually talked to them in March when we sent the letter, and they understood, and they said, well, we're trying to help. We understand perfectly well. They were concerned a little bit about conflict of interest and had assumed, as commissioners had done in the past, they would just recuse themselves from conversations. But the commissioners we had in the past who were recusing were actually less directly involved in funding. And these are very, very direct involvements that would make it so that they would have to recuse themselves from virtually every decision.
Thank you.
So it wasn't only the product, but the process that you engaged in. It was fair, reasonable, and all agreed. There's no hard feelings about this, which I find to be
not that I'm aware of, no. I just talked to them after I had talked to the Assistant County Counsel and said, this is where I'm headed, and I wanted them to be sure that we understood, again, that they're friends. We appreciated their willingness to do this, and they both agreed. They said, well, we thought that might be an issue, but we thought we'd apply, so.
Okay, and Supervisor Thomas, would you like to add to our consideration here under single motion the Fish and Game?
Okay, were there any public comments on this issue? Perhaps not. Okay, under those circumstances, I would be pleased to offer up Buzz Balderson as my representative on the Fish and Game Commission. Buzz, interestingly, served as an 18-year-old on some Fish and Game. He was paid by Fish and Game back when he was 18 years old, and he's been an avid fisherman ever since. I think he'll be a very good addition to the Fish and Game Commission. He's replacing Janine White, who has expressed a desire to be relieved, at least temporarily, from her responsibilities because of the care of an aging mother. So with Buzz Balderson for the Fish and Game, and I would like to make that motion. And can we combine them? I guess.
Yes, Althea Shannon Crawford.
And Althea Shannon Crawford for the first 5.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote. We now move to a review of correspondence, reports, and various matters of concern. Let's start with Supervisor Triumph.
I do not have anything to bring before the board, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Thomas?
Okay.
Wait a minute, may I go back on that?
Of course you can.
Oh, wait a minute.
No. Well, let's take a vote on that. Go ahead.
We did have a LAFCO meeting. Russ and I were in attendance last night, and we did have a water forum. After that meeting, we had a presentation. Maybe I'll leave it to Russ, because the presentation was basically on Wallace versus Valley Springs, et cetera. So just that I was in attendance, and I can let Russ bring up
All right, thank you, Tom.
the comments from the consultant.
Russ, the time to you.
Okay, yes, we had Ed Pattison with CCWD gave a report on their, it's a fairly extensive map that the CCWD representatives have been compiling on the water assets, distribution assets that exist in the county, and with a forward look about perfecting our water, these elusive, what do they call it, reservations. We need to perfect the reservations for the future of Calaveras County. And Ed was talking about the fact that the CCWD was a recipient of a $68,000 grant from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy for the purpose of doing additional studies down in the Wallace and Burson area to talk about the water availability and water options for water transportation into that area. Also, there was a gentleman that came from Montgomery Watson Consultants to CCWD that talked briefly about some studies that are commencing for the same type of analysis up on the Highway 4 corridor. It's I think an excellent venue to discuss the same types of things that this board was interested in when we appointed the Joint Water Committee with the Board of Supervisors, between the board and CCWD. So things are still continuing to move, albeit a little slowly. But okay, moving on to other announcements, I just wanted to Bob Miller from Copperopolis wanted me to make people aware that there is an event in Copperopolis on Sunday, this Sunday, at the Lake Tulloch Bible Church. It's a performance by a group called the Yoder family, Y-O-D-E-R. Apparently these folks are very talented and have some widespread reputation as musicians, and particularly in their ministry in jails and prisons all throughout the United States. It's quite a popular group of country gospel and bluegrass. They're having their performance, again, I'll repeat that it's at 4 o'clock at the Lake Tulloch Bible Church. That's on Spangler Lane at the near the intersection of Spangler and O'Burns Ferry Road. And Bob also mentioned that there will be a potluck immediately following the performance. That's at 6 o'clock. So people who are interested in that kind of music should go. Okay, as far as my board responsibilities, this isn't necessarily a board responsibility, but I do want to mention that Supervisor Walensky and Bob Lawton and Vernis Haddix will be accompanying me to the Vallecito Fire Camp tomorrow at 10 o'clock for a little orientation, and I was very much interested in getting to know more about what that facility can, how we can interact with them to help them and to help us. Okay, and then I've been asked to go to an economic development meeting on Friday. I will be a participant in the Relay for Life in what Paulina Wada was talking about here this morning on the Saturday morning. And also there's a Valley Springs train days on the 26th, Saturday the 26th, down in Valley Springs, an acknowledgement of the existence of that wonderful train station that they have down there. It's an all-day festivities, and Bill and I previously contributed toward their fees for that event. Gosh, this is a busy week. Habitat for Humanities is having a groundbreaking on Sunday down on Dunn, 3308 Dunn in the Rancho Calaveras area, and I'll be making an appearance there. That's it for me.
Marita.
Tonight I have a public meeting on the Arnold Rim Trail, and we'll be talking about possibly there being a candidate for Proposition 40 monies. We'll be in Sacramento Wednesday for 2 meetings. One is the California State Association of Counties Representatives State Water Plan on government, that sort of a subset. In the afternoon, we are in front of meaning the sheriff's team, is in front of the executive steering committee to make our presentation for the jail. And then, of course, we'll find out officially on May 8th, and we should get a verbal on the 28th of April. So I've been given 45 seconds. Think I can do that, 45 seconds? I think I do. I'm going to tell them we've committed. So if you all want to back out, you better tell me right now. I have Treasury Oversight on Thursday. I think there's a chamber event. I have it in my book. Somebody can tell me that.
It's at the Blue House Bistro.
Okay. On Saturday, I'll be presenting the plaque that we all did the resolution on to Avery Middle School for the Audubon. We did it in Douglas Flat last year. And so it's dedicating a tree, my favorite topic. And I, too, will be at Relay for Life. And, one other thing, our electric rates are going to go up from 3.5 to 4 cents a kilowatt hour for the 08-09 year. We are looking under Calaveras Public Power Authority to start raising the rates, and we're looking at the mechanism to probably 5.5 or possibly 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Now, when we all look at our PG&E bill, we think, gee, I'd like to have 6 cents a kilowatt hour. We have a rate stabilization fund with Calaveras Public Power Authority, and the minimum amount we keep in the fund is $3 million. We have $3.7 million in there. So we're trying to decide, how do we want to do it? Do we want to just jump from 4 cents to 5.5? We haven't made a decision yet as a board of the Calaveras Public Power Authority, of which this county is one of the permanent members of that. So I did tell Shirley that it's going to go up along with everything else when we have the budget this afternoon. Keep that in mind. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Bill?
A lot of things going on here, none of them necessarily reportable. The Chamber Mixer is at the Blue House Bistro on Thursday, by the way. There's a Historical Society dinner at the Metropolitan on Thursday. Not sure I can make that, but I may, because there's a community plan meeting in Valley Springs at the Methodist Church, sponsored by myvalleysprings.com. That is Thursday evening at 6, so I'll be there. On Saturday, there is the Relay for Life, where I will make at least an appearance. The train times that Supervisor Thomas referred to will be from 9 to 5 in Valley Springs at the train depot right at the intersection of Highway 12 and 26. And at 1 p.m. I will be at the there's a resolution that was on today's consent agenda. I will be presenting the resolution for the 125th year anniversary of the Azalea Angels chapter of Eastern Star at the Masonic Hall in San Andreas. And I believe that's all I have to report.
Okay, as for me, let's see, tonight is a community plan meeting for the town of Glencoe. I'll be joining CAO and Russ and others at the Vallecito camp, goal being to try to get more connection to their work in each of these districts that we serve. I have a meeting on the Moke River designation. They're talking about trying to open it for commercial rafting and try to develop the North Fork, as well as be consistent with the Coast to Crest Trail along there. So there's some planning meetings regarding that with a number of agencies. On Thursday, I have a meeting with the subcommittee of the Sierra Conservancy. This is to revise the grant proposal process and some of the criteria for them.
But the report date's in May, that we get to make changes.
That's correct, but this is the committee working on the options, and it's a working committee that I was appointed to from the Conservancy Board.
So are they going to send something else out again?
Yes, I would imagine these would be revised, not for this round, but for the next one.
Okay, we have to respond by May, whatever the date is, 15th or something. And they sent something out. Are those going to be changed?
We are reviewing, you're talking about the ones for this round.
For the criteria for the grant application, they've asked for comment.
Yes, okay. They're asking for comments. We're reviewing, and I'm on the committee that reviews those comments and the staff recommendations on that to make final. One of the things that's been talked about is that many of the counties that are best organized seem to get a lot of the bigger grants because they're more daunting, that they're staffed to be able to produce these things, whereas many of the counties most in need of the kinds of watershed grants that we would certainly benefit from, we're not set up to be able to do much besides the strategic opportunity grants, which have a 10-page narrative. And the goal is to try to find a way to equalize this and focus on need rather than necessarily having it solely based on the quality of an application, because there's clearly counties in the Sierra that are much advantaged by a process that doesn't count need in carefully. So that's the review we're doing. At any rate, I also have a candidates forum sponsored by the DSA at 7 p.m. at the San Andreas Town Hall. That would be on Thursday, the 24th. We have on Saturday the filming of from the Understory project in West Point. And I will try to also get to the fundraiser for the Mountain Ranch youth program that's at the community hall that night. And finally, the Habitat for Humanity groundbreaking out there on Dunn Street, if time permits. Yes, and Marita had one additional thing to add.
I
to
really
her
have
report.
two for board appointed. I have on Thursday Juvenile Justice Committee.
Yes.
Carol. So I don't know that I'll be at the chamber. And Tom, you're my backup on Fish and Game. Could you go for me Wednesday night? It's at 5:30 now here, because I'm going to probably be coming back from Sacramento at that time.
Yes,
Okay.
I got to remember that. I have to remember that. 5:30 Wednesday?
5:30 Wednesday here, the Fish and Game Commission. Thank you.
5:30 Wednesday.
Thank you. Anything to report from the CAO's office?
I don't think so, not today, sir.
And County Council? Clerk? In that case, breaking all records, we will adjourn at 10:22. Thank you all for being here. We will reopen for a study session at 1:30, which will feature our third quarter economic and budget status report.
Is Darren coming back?
And Darren will be coming back to film that, so you don't have to actually be here to see it. Yes? Could the supervisors please assemble for the 1:30 study session?
Plenty of room in the front two rows.
Where does the board
For 60 days after we adopted it, over the town hall.
Plenty of room in the first two rows here.
This is a company that makes skirts all these different products. I like that.
Shirley, all set? Okay, I'd like to call the afternoon study session into order. This will be a review of the third quarter financial report. And I guess to kick it off, we have our Deputy CAO, Shirley Ryan.
Good afternoon. As the mid-year report, the County Administrator's Office committed to bringing back the third quarter report to the Board of Supervisors, and here we are. And since this computer is just a little bit different than mine and the buttons seem to be opposite, if I click a wrong button, bear with me. Anyway, today's agenda, what we'd like to talk about is what the process we use to develop the third quarter report, our general fund projections, just an overview again of where we are and what our revenue trends are, what the general fund expenditures are. Then we look at the public work projections, health and human services projections. We talk about county budget for fiscal year 2008-09. We'll get into the staff's cost savings suggestions, and then where we go from there. We wanted this to be a somewhat forward-looking report. We gave a pretty in-depth report at mid-year regarding expenditures, revenues, etc. And though I will touch on that briefly, we wanted to look more as to where this was going to take us in relation to fiscal year end and, of course, budget for 2008-09. So in doing so, we met with department heads after their mid-year report and discussed with them what they thought their revenue projections were going to be. Mid-year, I kind of did know those projections, so I wanted to see whether I was on the same page or not with the department heads, because certainly they know their budgets better than I do. We also wanted expenditure projections from them, where they thought they would be spending-wise come fiscal year end, and what that meant to their net county costs in relationship to what they had budgeted. We also asked that they think about what cost-saving measures they were implementing or had implemented to ensure that their budget would be where it was come year end. And we asked that they get staff involved in coming up with cost-saving suggestions. And we wanted to know what they did. Did they meet with staff? Did they send out a memo? How they involved staff in that? Then we asked that they provide us with a memo detailing those particular items and do a brief narrative on their budgets and kind of what that meant in relationship to the overall budget and the impacts of the economy and, the state budget was having on them. And we also asked them to provide us in writing their department's cost-saving ideas. And what that boiled down to was, come fiscal year end, they were projecting revenues that totaled for the general fund a little over $43 million, with projected expenses being about $41.5 million. And that would leave, when we put it all together for the general fund, that means projected cash carry at fiscal year end of a little over $1.5 million, which was up $150,000 from the mid-year cash carry projection of 1.4. And again, a lot of this is tied to the economy and the sluggishness of construction, housing, etc. So just a little bit of an overview. This is from, some of this is just a recap and updating information from mid-year, is that when we went into this budget year, we had almost a $2.9 million cash carry, which was down from the prior year's cash carry of $3.8 million. We carried forward $700,000 in encumbrances. And so our working budget revenues at the third quarter is at $45 million, and working budget expenditures $44 million. Contingencies are at 2.9, and at the third quarter, obviously, we should be about 75%. Actual revenues are running about 61% for the general fund, and actual expenses are at about 62%. The general fund unassigned revenues, those are your secured and unsecured property taxes, franchise fees, VOF revenues, open space subvention, which is the Williamson Act. We've received 56% of those as of March 31st. Again, property tax hasn't posted for April, nor has the second half of the VOF. PG&E and cable franchise fees stabilized. They were slightly over what we budgeted. We got 106%. And again, this is just a breakdown of where we stand. 56% of secured property tax, which is basically where we were at mid-year because we haven't received the second installment. The PG&E franchise fees and cable TV franchise fees, which were zero at mid-year, have come in, and they're at 105 and 108% respectively. And that amounts to $461,000 versus $440,000 for PG&E, and $269,000 versus $250,000 for the cable TV. Again, VOF, the second half will come in May. And the Williamson Act subvention money is at about $130,000. We budgeted originally $197,000, but it's unlikely we'll get that after the audit. Consumer spending. That includes our county sales tax and use tax, Prop 172 revenue, the transit occupancy tax, or TOT, and property transfer tax. As of March 31st, we've received a little over $3.4 million of the $5.4 budgeted, which is about 63%. Again, sales and use tax is about 59%, should be about 75. It's a little over 1.5 of the 1.5 million of the 2.65 million that was budgeted. Prop 172 is faring a little bit better at 73%, and that's 1.2% of 1.7 million. TRT is doing really well at 79%, and that's about 333,000 of 420 budgeted. However, property transfer tax is only at about 47%, and that's about 305,000 to 650. And this is just a graph to show you in comparison of where those revenues are in relationship to prior years. I did a 5-year trend, and as you can see, it was going up, and then it's coming down, especially on the property transfer tax. And given what we're hearing, not only in the state of California, not only in Calaveras County, but nationwide, the economy is slowing down, and the things related to construction and housing and real estate are feeling the impact. So we go right into construction development. And this is your building fees, your sewer system application fees, and your planning application fees. And of this, we've only received about 47%, or $877,000 of $1.8 million. Building and sewage system fees are at 48 and 57%, respectively, with the planning fees at 28%. And then those are some pretty significant numbers when you would compare them to where we would normally be at 75%. Building fees are at about $715,000, and budgeted was $1.5 million. Sewage application fees are about $116,000 out of $205,000, and planning application fees are only about $44,000 out of $158,000 budgeted. And again, you can see the 5-year trends for the building fees, the sewage system application fees, and the planning fees. And given, again, what's happening nationwide, it's not terribly surprising. And just briefly, the state subventions, realignment, sales tax, CLF, timber tax, AB 443 money, we're running overall about 90% of where we would be, but a good portion of that is the AB 443 money that comes in at the beginning of the year. That's $500,000. And again, just the graph showing where each of these lie. Realignment sales tax at 68%, realignment CLF at 74%, timber tax about 42%, and all of the AB 443 money. So, general fund expenditures for the third quarter were about 62% expended. However, there are things that are impacting that, especially in the last half of the year. One is the increases to salary and benefits that were negotiated with all employees. If anybody's been to the gas station lately, you know that gas prices are on the increase, and I just heard the barrel of oil just went up to $117 a barrel this morning, I believe is what they said. So, what have departments been doing to implement some cost-saving measures? There's been a wide variety, and some of them are very germane to their particular department and may not pertain to other departments. But vacant positions, they've been good about holding those unfilled to see how the remainder of the year goes, eliminating all non-essential travel and cutting expenses where they can. And draws on contingencies, there have been no more draws on the contingency fund since the mid-year report, so it's still where we were there. Just a little bit of information on non-general fund departments, and I just hit some of the major ones. Public Works, Development Services, they are estimating their revenues at year-end to be a little over $1.4 million, with their expenditures at a slightly over $1 million, bringing forward a cash carry of $408,000. Roads and Bridges, they're projecting revenue of nearly $9 million with expenditures of about $8.5 million, with a cash carry of $580,000. And I don't want you to have a heart attack over that number because it is significantly lower than their cash carry from prior years. But there are two main reasons. One was Prop 42 monies, which were not received this year but will be received next year. Another portion of that is the 1B money that we included in this year's budget, but they will be submitting their plan to the state for approval, and that money will be available next year, and that's $1.7 million. And they have adjusted their expenditures and spending plans accordingly, and I'm sure that if you have further questions that you can speak to, Mike Miller can speak to those issues. Also, in the report that you were given ahead of time, the staff report, there's narratives in there regarding a lot of the general fund departments that had, if they were running real close to budget and their net cash, their net county contribution, we didn't include them, but if they were off, we included the narratives from the memos that were submitted to the county administrative office. And I'm sure that if you have any questions specifically for those budgets, once this presentation is done, they'd be happy, department heads would be happy to answer those questions. Integrated waste management for public works, the revenues are projected at $6.3 million with expenditures close to $5 million and cash carry estimated at a little over $1.3 million. Health and Human Services, I combined just for ease the health agency, which includes public health, behavioral health, mental health, and substance abuse. Combined total of revenues of $15 million with expenditures of nearly $10 million, with a cash carry of $5.3 million. But with everything that's happening at the state next year, I'm sure they'll be glad that they have that cash carry. CalWorks and Human Services, revenues of $14 million, expenditures of nearly $3 million, with a cash carry of $1 million. Again, some of that is lagged with the billings and the way the advances work. Again, this will help should the state decide to defer payments the first 2 months of the quarter of fiscal year 08-09 and allow them to continue services and have that cash carry to do so. So, what does this all mean for county budget for the year 08-09? We're anticipating a structural deficit of $3.8 million. And what is contributed to that is the negotiated contract will increase salary and benefits for the coming year of over $1 million. Property taxes, the assessors office are estimating a zero growth. And we have, I think we'll continue to see decreases in the housing and construction related revenues. Some of what will offset that is the projected cash carry of $1.5 million or nearly $1.6 million. We discussed in the department head meeting yesterday a 5% net county cost reduction to the general fund budget, which would be $1.2 million. So right there is close to $2.8 million, and we still off $1 million. So, what to do? We have the staff cost-saving ideas are really, I think, important to look at and look at seriously. When this report went out, I sent you the unedited version of those, all of the cost-saving ideas from all the people in all the departments. And obviously, some of them, if you read them, were done tongue-in-cheek, as well as there were some really good suggestions. Bake sales, car washes, what have you. But it was something that really got people involved and got people thinking. And I did it for a reason, because I wanted you to see that there was a wide range of ideas. And some serious, some not so serious. Some of the not-so-serious ones can lead to serious considerations or other ideas. And when you ask people to participate in the process, you want to make sure that they feel that they have been heard. And I thought, at least first time around, let's put them all in. So what we did for the department head meeting yesterday was take those ideas. We eliminated the ones that were only departmental related. We figured department heads and their staffs are really good at determining what will work and what are truly cost savings for them. Then we took and eliminated duplications, or if they were close, we kind of combined them to give, so we didn't have a lot of the same things repetitive over and over again. Then we tried to categorize them. Are they savings for personnel, utilities, workflow efficiencies, revenue enhancements, and then miscellaneous category, kind of catch all. We distributed this to the department heads at the meeting yesterday and asked them to review them and take a look at them. And I'm just going to go over a few of those by category so the board can see what the ones are that are up for discussion. And we're always open to new suggestions. Under personnel ideas, of course, the age-old hiring freeze. Also, eliminate or reduce extra hire and overtime where possible. Reinstate the voluntary time off program. If you remember, a number of years ago, that was a program where people could take a day off without pay, and it wouldn't, it wouldn't go against anything that was there for you to do so. Early out or the golden handshake. Employees hired after 7108 would pay the employee contribution to PERS, which is 7% for miscellaneous employees and 9% for safety. Healthcare incentives. You healthier people, you have people more at work and doing the job. So they were looking at health incentives such as gym memberships or help quit smoking. Change it from bi-weekly pay to a monthly pay. Look at alternative staffings for 10-hour days so that the government center was shut down one day. Possibly 36-hour work weeks or other reduced work weeks. Create a pool of extra hire candidates for county departments so that when they need someone, they can just go to the pool and that somebody that they, with the skills that they need, are available. Job sharing, a personal time bank, and this is an idea I believe Supervisor Quadina put forth a number of years ago, relating to you get paid for 39 hours a week and you work 40, the hour goes into a bank to be used as you accumulate it at a later time. But medical and cash in lieu of benefits as opposed to the tiered rate. And somebody suggested telecommuting. Utility savings, some of the obvious ones: turning off the lights, fax machines, computers, monitors, and any other equipment at night. Install ceiling fans. Keep thermostats programmed, and they also said review the way the electrical heating and air conditioning is handled at Government Center. Eliminate, and hopefully by doing so, eliminate the use of portable heaters and fans. Review the newly remodeled bathrooms that have the automatic flushes for whether or not they are truly saving water, and solar panels for energy. Workflow efficiencies. I really want to say that there were, there's not many up here, but there were a lot of them in the original list, but a lot of them were department related, and what worked in one department was specific to that department, and I didn't want to include those. So a single countywide database for all public information and documents, as opposed to storing or printing out hard copies. Put the employee newsletter online versus printing it. Reduce the number of required board packet copies, make them available online, which they are already available on our website. Encourage the use of electronic files versus paper, again, looking to save the paper. Recycle office supplies, file folders, paper clips, etc. Purchase recycled paper. I'm not sure what the cost savings would be, if any, on that one, but it's possible. Consolidate accounting purchasing into central stores. Now, if anybody who's been here a long time, or at least as long as I have, you'll know that we, at one point in time, we had a central stores that did all the purchasing of supplies, and departments got their supplies from the stores and then were billed on a quarterly basis for those supplies. Stop buying the bottled water or the 5-gallon jugs of water for departments. Again, posting having more forms available on the internet so that the public could access them and print them out or complete them online instead of having a lot of printing charges. And suppress unnecessary reports from current information systems. Then there were ideas regarding travel and county vehicles. One was to eliminate the policy of the permanent take-home vehicles for employees. Reimburse meals based on actual cost versus per diem. Carpool to meetings when more than one person or a person from multiple departments are going carpool together. Video conferencing, and part of the suggestion was even to do a video conferencing center here so that it would be available to all departments. Of course, the people you're conferencing with also has to have that ability. Creation of a motor pool. I know this one has been on the table before. Buying bulk fuel. Meal reimbursement for out-of-county travel only if an overnight stay is required. Overnight lodging only if the location is more than a 2-hour drive from the county. Purchasing fuel-efficient hybrid vehicles. Developing in-house management training and do on-site group training versus sending people off-site for training. Revenue sources. And this is where I could have put that big seal on that car wash. Ensure that the fees offset the cost of services. Charge a nominal fee for outside groups meeting out-of-county facilities. Add the credit debit card payment option so people can pay fees or fines via credit card or debit cards. Charge special districts A87 costs. Create an Office of Revenue Recovery for centralized collections. Sorry, that's supposed to be collections, not locations. And I think charge prisoners for running board. And then some of the miscellaneous things that, as I went back and looked at, maybe I could have put them in one of the other categories, but just decided to leave them here, is again, review use and need for off-site rental storage. We have a lot of county departments that are renting storage units, and so they're looking at ways to cut their costs, and one of them was to provide an on-site central storage facility. A moratorium on roadside spraying or use the prisoners to cut the weeds instead. Create a plan for future building and space needs. Cell phones, do stipends instead of having the county contract and get phones and pay bills and keep track of those. I do a fax server instead of all the individual fax machines so that you can access fax that people send you right on your computer. Auction surplus county property. We do send the vehicles out to an auction warehouse, but we're looking at others. Stream the board meetings via live public TV and the web, feeling that maybe people who can't get here could watch it that way. Utilize county staff's expertise and eliminate outside consultants. And charge non-residents at fees at county landfills instead of turning them away. So where do we go from here? Well, the department heads in the discussion yesterday we plan to form a subcommittee to analyze all the ideas and make some recommendations and see if we can attach dollar amounts to what the savings were for those. Obviously, a lot of the personnel recommendations would be meet and confer issues, and HR would need to identify which ones those are and develop a strategy for looking at those. The 2008-2009 departmental budget requests are due to the County Administrator's Office on April 30th, and we will be taking a look at those. Departments have been inputting those through budget item detail directly into VITEC. So once they have completed those on April 30th, we will be able to immediately roll those and take a look and see what the bottom line is for the budget next year. The governor will be coming out with May revise in May, and we'll be looking at what the impacts of that will be. And then we will be in proposed hearings the first week in June. Any questions?
Board members? Questions?
have some comments, but I would like to save them until the questions are over. I just want to talk about this time bank
Okay.
in a broader sense.
Any questions from staff, audience, members of the public? Shy crew today.
Holy mackerel.
What about the bake sale?
Any bake sale advocates out there? All right. If there are no questions, shall we move into comments? All right, Bill?
What a shy crowd. It's all about money. Are you in sticker shock? Something like that. As Shirley mentioned, this time bank idea was discussed at one time. Actually, it was discussed several times. I don't believe it's ever been brought to a public forum, so I don't know how many of you people are familiar with it. Maybe all of you, maybe some of you, maybe none of you. But if I understand correctly, Shirley, you're talking about the general fund, and the shortcoming or shortfall that we have is 5% that you're talking about is only half of it. It's 1.2 million. That's only half. And one of the comments that you made is something that we obviously look at, even though we don't like to talk about it, and that is the look at staffing. Now, when I came to this board 3.5 years ago, a decision had been made then, apparently, to embark on what was called furlough days. And I am not familiar with what went into that decision or how you came to do that. But as I say, it was in effect. Furlough day being people would stay home one day and not get paid for that day, which resulted, of course, in salary savings. I don't think that's the most efficient way to do it. This is my not-so-humble opinion. If these payroll, if the budget woes get large enough, people are going to think about this because it does happen sometimes. The nastiest word in the language is layoffs. And nobody wants to talk about that because it is nasty. It's horrible. It can ruin families by virtue of income and so on and so forth. And the way I look at this, if we go to something like a furlough day, not that it's this intent, but it gives this vision to me. If you talk about layoffs, or if we talk about layoffs enough to put the fear factor out there, and literally it is a fear factor, it would be for most families, then if you back it off to furlough days, to me it's sort of like when the fuel companies raise the price of fuel $1 a gallon, and after the panic button settles down a little bit, they back off 50 cents, and now you've got a 50% increase, and people are okay with that because it's better than the dollar increase. So that's how I look at the furlough day solution in its relationship to the layoffs. However, my opinion is, and I'm not saying that I'm an expert on this, but the vision that I have, or the view I have of this, is that the furlough days are flawed in their inequities as opposed to a time bank. And the reason I say that, if people take a furlough day, that means they get to stay at home, of course, to go wherever they want to. They don't come to work, and they don't get paid for that day. That day's wages, whatever that is gone permanently from that family's budget and from whatever economic benefit that payroll would have had to the rest of the community, economically speaking. The other thing that I see, two other things that I see basically wrong with the furlough day, if they can be helped, is I didn't like the idea that it's rather divisive. In other words, I'm not sure what percentage of the people took furlough days, but I know all of them didn't, because some of the positions and some of the duties are regarded as essential as opposed to non-essential. Now, I've never been in that situation, but I think I know how it would feel if I got to stay home and didn't work because my job was not essential and someone else worked because their job is essential. So however you look at that, it's rather divisive from the morale point of view. It just is, whether it's consciously or subliminal, whatever it is. And the third and most important thing to our mission is that whoever stays home, if 30% of the workforce stays home a day, that cuts the service to the public, which is why we are here, is to provide service to the public. And so however many hours or however much effort that percentage of staff puts out in serving the public, that has also gone forever. So for those reasons, personally, I don't care for the furlough day idea when it's compared to the time bank. And so let me explain what I mean by the time bank, at least to the extent that I have participated in this. And time banks have empirical validation not only in the public sector, but in the private sector as well. And they have worked well, the places that I have heard, that it was put in place. It certainly worked well where I worked. We participated in it twice, and it was as close to painless as possible, and it lacked the disadvantages that I just talked about with the furlough days. The personal leave program, personal time bank, whatever you want to call it. And the numbers here don't matter, it's the idea. So let's say, for instance, with a personal leave or personal time bank, rather than an hour, let's say we took a day, 1 day a month. And that means that each employee would work that day, but they would not get paid for that day. But the money's not gone because whatever shift that person works, some are 8 hours, some are 8.5 hours, whatever that is, that goes into a time bank. Not a money bank, but a time bank. So you can do this for 1 month or 2 months or 18 months. It does a couple of things. First of all, everybody participates. So it tells me that this employee is not necessarily any more important than this employee, and I just like that. Because it strikes me, if this person's job is unessential, let's eliminate the position. If it's essential, let them work, provide service to the public. So it's not as good as if you did not get paid for that day, that's for sure. But those 8 hours go into a time bank and are paid back when the budget is more healthy and or when that person ceases employment with the county. The advantage to that is they're paid back at the current rate. And I know this is an advantage because I have been involved in this situation twice. If I work for a year and 12 of those days I don't get paid for, and those are in a time bank, in 5 or 10 years from now, that's when I choose to take the money out, then I can get that money at the current rate. It's like a savings account with interest, folks. It's a lot better than never getting the money. Okay? The other thing is, of course, that everybody is treated equally. And the third, and perhaps most important thing is, the level of service does not go down. So I've been talking about this with individuals off and on for 3.5 years, but I don't know if it's ever gone any further than my conversation with those specific individuals. So I'm bringing it up here to make it part of this record. Because if, and this is not a doomsday comment, of course, but if we get to the point where we're thinking about some sort of staffing options here, I want us to be ready to do this if this is the option that seems the best for us. I have no idea what it means with regard to meet and confer or union acceptance or whatever, but you know what? We meet with these people all the time. For 3.5 years, I believe we've negotiated with every union that we deal with. So I don't want to see us wait until we have to do something to start looking into this. Okay? And it has the options of being 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 1 day. It depends on what the situation is and what this board decides we need to do. But to me, that is the most efficient, the most fair to the employee and to the public. So I want you all to know that I'm very serious about this. If there are arguments in favor of some other program as opposed to this, of course I'd be willing to hear them, but I can't think of them. The second thing for efficiencies that I don't understand quite why we do this, and it may be a very good reason, is that we still maintain a balance of sick leave and a balance of vacation, which is really a diminishing or shrinking way of doing things, both in the public and private sector. And it seems to me that it is not only more efficient, but more advantageous to the county and to the employee to simply have an annual leave or a personal leave bank, where those hours are used either as sick leave or as vacation, as the person wishes. The employee gets more hours to use per year, and the county has to keep track of less hours as far as most people retire with a large balance of sick leave. And this would eliminate that, or at least decrease that. So that's something that I want us to look. These are long-term efficiencies, I understand that, but I would like to see us seriously look into that. And if there are detractors or reasons that we shouldn't do that, of course, those need to be brought forward as well. The third thing that I never have understood, and it seems like, is this pay period that comes every 7 years. It's like, it boggles my mind. To me, it's like watching a science fiction movie when you know that in 7 years the asteroid is going to hit Earth. So every day you plan on what to do when the end comes. And so every day, somewhere in a computer or in somebody's mind or on a piece of paper with a pencil, somebody has to keep track of all this payroll issue, ups and downs in the payroll issue, to keep track of the extra pay period that's coming. And I would really like to see us go to pay periods, whether they're monthly, whether they're biweekly, whatever it is, and have an equal number of pay periods each year and eliminate this asteroid that comes every 7 years and impacts the economy in the way of payroll here. I just don't see any reason to keep that. And if there's a good reason, I'd be happy to hear it, but I can't think of one myself. So those are the three things that I would like to look at seriously, very seriously, and very soon.
Thank you, Bill. Other board comments?
Well, I have some questions, Shirley.
We already did questions. These are comments.
Other board questions or
I will
comments?
make a statement, and you can tell me, add on to the statement. On the Williamson Act, the $130,000, that's net of the penalty, or how much we're going to be dinged, maybe?
It was my understanding, and I'm sure the assessor's office will have more information. We originally budgeted $197,000. We got the $130,000, but I believe the total liability for the county was about $300,000.
So
Is that included in this, in the calculations? No.
No, because what they'll do is, I don't know if we received the final report. I haven't seen it, but my understanding was that it would be spread over a couple of years. So we have the $130,000. I do not believe we'll be receiving any more revenue for the remainder of this fiscal year, and we have yet to know how it will impact the revenues for 0809.
So the $130,000 is net of what the penalty would be, but we don't know how, if we're going to have to repay it, how we're going to repay it. Is that right, Randy?
I believe the 130 is the actual payment that we're receiving once they took the prime ground away from us at $4. So I don't know how the penalty is going to be paid back.
This is minus the prime land.
This is calculated as it should be calculated versus how it had been calculated in the past, but it has not been impacted yet by the penalty or the repayment that we are
Because we don't
required
know
to.
how that's going to work.
Thank you, Shirley.
Are we going to know how that's going to work come budget time?
I certainly hope so.
Are we going to fight it? Mr. Assessor?
No.
Okay. The thing I was having trouble with, the recommendations, and I truly did appreciate seeing the unedited versions of ideas. Thank you. You said that when you met with the department heads, they talked about a net county cost reduction to the general fund of 1.2 or 1.2. I'm not real clear on, is there how that's going to be reached? I mean, am I missing something?
We did a real brief calculation based on the current year's budget, the 07-08 budget. What I did was I took each department or key and took what their revenue was, less their expenditures, or the expenditures less their revenue, and what was left was the net county cost, and determined what it would be for each department, and then we took 5% of that. Now, that will differ based on what the departments have submitted for their 08-09 budget, because that 5% reduction would actually be off of that. So it may be a little more because salary and benefits have increased, and maybe a little less if departments are looking at ways to conserve and reduce their spending or increase their revenues. So that was just a ballpark figure to give us some idea of what a 5% increase would be.
But when you went through each of the key departments that had potential issues, and you did the auditor would be an overall increase to net county cost, the treasurer, tax collector, non-departmental, etc. How does that fit into the net county cost 5% reduction?
When we looked at, we kind of did it as two separate things. We looked at what their projections were to get us through the end of the year so that we could determine what our cash carry would be and how that related to what was budgeted for them. Now, some of those increases to county costs were impacted by reduced revenues. Their expenditures may even have been less than what they budgeted, but their revenues were significantly less. So I wasn't looking at necessarily the projections. I was looking more at what was budgeted and took the 5% off the budgeted amount.
And we're talking about two different fiscal years.
And we're talking two different, yeah.
Yeah, the figures in the narrative section refer to the 07-08 budget, and the 5% was what we're talking about prospectively
Okay.
in 08 or 09.
Okay. With all due respect to my colleague, Supervisor Cordino, and I understand I agree with him on the pay period, so I'm looking at our BITEC gurus out there, and I know she isn't in favor of it. She and I've talked about it, but I'm not looking to make recommendations because I think that the employees have done a lot with their respective departments, and it seems to be that you have a process in place that you're working with department heads on. And so I guess I'll be looking to see that we will have a 1.2% reduction to the general fund, and we will have a cash carry of 1.57. How you bring it to us in June is your challenge as far as I'm concerned, and at that point I will get out my red pencil, but I'm really pleased with this. I'm glad we had a third quarter report. Thank you. Thank you, Stu.
Other board comments? I'll make a few. First, I want to thank you for compiling this for us, and your ongoing diligence in this regard is much appreciated. You've been telling us now since I got on the board that we should stop living off of cash carry, and in each of the successive years we've gone down in the amount of cash carry approximately 1.3 to 1.6 million, I guess is the general range. To me, that's our real operating deficit. We can move numbers around, but it's clear that our cash carry is diminishing even as we try to live on it more and more. And I find that to be troubling. I think we cannot build in structural deficits of that size in a budget that's either flatlined or potentially shrinking. That said, I also want to thank the department heads for the process that you've been involved in, and also the line staff that have come up with a lot of suggestions. This next quarter is going to require us to evaluate, prioritize, and I'd like to lay out some of my thoughts on some, I guess, criteria that we might think about. I agree with Bill that a one-size-fits-all furlough-type situation doesn't meet the criteria that I would hope we would be able to achieve. One aspect is we had to realize each department is different. Some produce revenue, so when we cut into that, we're actually harming ourselves. We're calling the hits in on our own position, which makes no sense at all in an economic hardship moment. Secondly, the sense of inequality and that it creates when some don't participate is also a morale factor in an already demoralizing situation. It seems to me that this then places tremendous burden on each department to come up with a set of tools. We're trying to come up with a list of things that you might use and make decisions about ways to do two things. One is maintain public services as best as possible in a tough time. And secondly, to maintain staff. It costs money to recruit. When we have downturns, to unload staff, to demoralize them to the point of leaving public service makes little sense long-term, and ultimately sometimes costs more than it saves. So there are a number of possibilities available to each department. We've talked about operational efficiencies, we've talked about technological efficiencies, and I'm not hearing a whole lot about structural efficiencies, which is something I keep thinking, that if we are able to consolidate effort, in some cases share some staff, follow our peak load moments across departmental lines. If there are innovations of that nature, I think it could be helpful long term. I agree with the thoughts that Bill proposed, that it would be nice to develop some additional tools that we haven't previously used, and I'd like to suggest one myself. A little used component of the EDD, state employment, is the California Job Sharing Unemployment Act. And that act actually fits this desire to have each department have opportunities to make decisions itself. What it is a situation in which if a department or a subgroup in a department, like a shift within a department or even a small portion of a department, one service within it, is facing a 10% or more potential cut in staff, it triggers the eligibility for that unit to participate in a Job Sharing Unemployment Act compensation. And what it does is allow, let's take an example. If one department says, well, we'd like to keep all our staff, we don't want to lay anybody off, but we'd like to have every other week, each person would take a day off. Those people would be eligible for unemployment for that day of the entire unit. What that means is that while people might have a 10% reduction in actual work hours, often their take-home pay is in the 90 to 93, 94% because of their eligibility for unemployment. It's not used by many jurisdictions, mostly schools. But in my view, this moment where we're trying to figure out what to do in each situation, some departments may want to take a look at that if that suits the employees, keeps the service up, and manages to keep all people on our rolls. That's not the only thing, but it's just one more thing that I would hope that the committee that's going to go out there and try to evaluate all the options, would hope you would include this in yours, because it actually has a tendency to be able to hold people for a period of time that we may be going through. I'd say one other thing in this. I don't think I've seen an economy quite like this, with the number of challenges that it's facing, and this is a national issue. Some people think that we're special here, but in fact, we've been affected statistically anyway. It doesn't help the people who are facing foreclosures or job loss, but statistically, we're certainly much better off than our neighbor to the immediate west. San Joaquin is in trouble. Contra Costa is in deep, deep trouble. And my view is that we need to both look at short-term ways to get through this year, but begin to take a look at long-term planning and prepare for what I think could possibly be the toughest economic challenges of my lifetime. Those of you who went through the Depression, I'm sure, saw infinitely worse. But this is not a good moment, and we should be ready for it. We should be honest about it, and we should do everything we can to provide, because the demand on services in health and human services in particular, in law enforcement, is going to increase, not decrease at the moment, even as our resources decline. So I'm hoping that people will take the moment seriously, be as creative as you can, and recognize, at least from people who have spoken from the board so far, that we'd like departments, knowing that you're all different and that there are different needs and different circumstances, that you take advantage of all the tools available to you to craft the right solution for you, rather than leave it up at the very end of the budget process for us to arbitrarily determine your fate. So please continue to participate, and we very much do appreciate what you've done so far in creating new choices. Russ.
We've been focusing here thus far on trying to look at where we can save costs, but I remember not too many weeks ago we had a report on our fee schedule, and the suggestion was that we move aggressively on adopting the fees. I haven't had any communication from people, at least the people that have been communicating to me, that were terribly resistant to that. I mean, the emails that I got on it was very supportive of moving forward with implementing fees that were in balance with what it's costing us to do business, and imploring us to do it as quickly as possible. So my question is, how quickly could we move forward to increasing those fees as we discussed?
Any thoughts, Shirley?
There was an email that was sent out to all the department heads at the beginning of this month, and asking them to review their fees and send their recommendations for increases, revisions, or deletions, or new fees to the administrative office. They were due on April 15th. Now that the third quarter financial is done, I will be looking at those and putting that whole packet together. I know there was a separate item for community development, and I believe the community development director was going to bring those fees back under a separate item.
Does the community development director have a response for when we might see those forthcoming?
It was my understanding it was going to be on May 13th.
They'll be on the agenda for May 13th. Stephanie Moreno, Director of Community Development. And I'll be strongly advocating the board adopt them as presented.
Thank you.
That still isn't going to change the fact. It's not going to make up for the deficit that's there.
It will make up the debt. The difference, the increase in fees, along with the proposed reorg that I have to review with Francine still, even without layoffs, I think will make our department cost neutral.
As we move into 0809.
As we move into 0809. There is
the deficit that's there for 0708, those won't make that up because it'll be new projects that come in.
That is correct. Although the adoption of fees may spur some people to come in on projects that they would normally be waiting on.
I think that very well might happen. It could cause not a flood necessarily, but an increase of activity. So if we bring it in on May, you said the 13th, that will be its first hearing.
It's not in ordinance form, it's a resolution. It'll be a public hearing. I think resolutions can be adopted the same day they're presented.
We already had one hearing.
Yeah. So it could move fairly quickly if we have...
All it has to do is come back.
Okay. So anybody who is listening, get in here with your plans before before June, I would think. So Okay, Bill, on your, that's fine, Stephanie, thank you. On this proposed bank, I think I heard you say, in the jurisdiction that where you used to work, that there was a 1 day a month?
Well, that's what we did, and let me make clear that I'm not suggesting we do that. My suggestion is that we do that instead of, if we get to the point where layoffs and/or furlough days are being considered, which I hope we never get there. But if that happens, I would like to see us be ready to evaluate this program. And where I worked before, they did it 1 day per month. You can do that with any increment, however, that you like. You can do it with an hour a week. You can do it with whatever. It's just simply a time bank. It's just that people show up for work and do their job. It's just that particular time measurement is not included on their on a pay for that pay period, and it's put into a time bank and paid back to them when we have the money.
And it's a voluntary type of thing, or is this across?
It can be, but where I worked, it was not.
Okay.
And that organization, 7,000 people, worked 1 day per month and didn't get paid for it for about, one of the times was 18 months. It was a heck of a savings, but we got the money back with interest.
Arithmetically, that works out to 1/2 of 1%. I mean, one in 173 days per month, or hours per month is, or excuse me, days per month. Not days per month, but 1 per 30. I was working the wrong way. 1 divided by 30.
My suggestion is that we leave it to the brilliant people we've hired to cost these things out. And there are lots of implications to these in unfunded liabilities and other matters that we need to cost out and make sure that each thing we offer as options actually has a clear savings to it. So, but I would hope that the staff listening to this would at least evaluate these heartfelt and good proposals that have been working in other jurisdictions.
And I think one of the things, if I just may, with the concern with the furlough days, it was a real impact to a number of our employees to go without a day's pay for 5 times a year in the pay period. And that's why in looking at that, to kind of do a twist on that, I mentioned a couple hours a week or a couple hours of pay period, because it's much easier, or it may be easier, to do without 2 hours pay, especially since when you net it out after taxes. It may be 20 or 30 hours, depending on what your hourly rate is. But that might be easier over a longer period of time, and either banking it as future pay or in an unfunded liability issues, or as time to be taken off at a later date. But I think those are real important issues to look at in a way to maybe lessen the impact should we need to do it. And that's why we want to look at it that way.
All right, we have a comment from our sheriff.
Yeah, I mean, Bill's idea, I think that that's to be fine. It's probably an preferred thing, but I would greatly appreciate it if we did implement something like that, that they had to be paid off in cash or whatever at some time down the road. But to allow people to take that off that comp time, 1 day at a time here or there, it kills us. We have to back over overtime, so it ends up costing them that day plus time and a half or something else. So they have to be paid in cash, and then I'm good for that, whether it's a year or 10 years. Right.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment now that the sheriff has broken the silence out there? Come forward and do so.
Why did you get up? Oh, go to sleep. Charge special districts A87 costs. What's A87?
A87 is cost allocation plan, and it's based on certain departments who provide services to all the other county departments as well as possibly special districts. A perfect example is the auditor's office, who provides check printing or payroll services, for TSD, who provides technology services for departments, utilities, all those go into the cost allocation plan or A87 cost.
And every time you come to the Board of Supervisors, that will cost you.
Yeah, I know. It's going to phase in at some point in time all the way around. The other question is, I was kind of optimistic in getting this third annual report, and I think this may have been the first time ever for this third quarter report, and I'd like to compliment whoever thought of doing that, and especially the way the economy is. One thing, I was hopeful that I might come up with a percentage, so for the special district that I'm with, as to what type of a decrease are we facing in this third quarter. And I know it's kind of a complicated question, but I didn't get a figure. Does one exist? In other words, this year, are we going to be receiving 2% less than we received this time last year, or 2% more, or even? What's the status?
I'm sorry to say,
Like our
for the
property
district.
tax, sure, like we're doing
Fire
zero
department.
we're
growth.
doing 0% growth is what the assessors are.
0% growth.
Meaning it would be the same
Okay.
as the prior year.
So 0% growth. But look out next year. Okay? Is that the general consensus? Is next year the impacts are going to probably be more?
For the property tax received in fiscal year 0809, if there's 0% growth, they would be basically the same as what was received in 0708.
Okay.
But if that changes because of people asking for their properties to be reassessed and down, then it could impact it down. And the assessor's office may, not knowing how many requests they've had for that and what that impacts would be, the assessor would be better able to answer that for you.
Okay.
Ed, this is one reason why we're trying to monitor it on a closer basis, and at the same time, knowing that it's a volatile economy out there, it could change. So right now, the projection and what we're operating on is a flatline budget from last time for you, but that's far from over in terms of analyzing our situation.
So everybody is paying their taxes as they should be paying their taxes, and no?
Actually, delinquencies are up, as often happens in economic hard times.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I guess the next step is next month. As things progress, things will become more clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait till the May revise, Ed.
I've got a question.
Sure, come on up.
Yesterday, we talked about this at the department heads meeting, and the numbers we're looking at here, is there a way we're not looking at layoffs? Is that a possibility? Because we were talking about $2.5 million hole or something like that. It's just when Bill was saying, if
That was
we're looking
before
at
cash
layoffs.
carry, correct me, Shirley, but that's before cash carry, which is $1.2 million. So,
If we look at the structural deficit of 3.8, and we do a cash carry to offset that of 1.5, almost 1.6, and then with a 5%, if we do a 5% reduction, and that saves us.
But that's layoffs for there.
Then we're still at $1 million deficit.
Okay, but that 5% is at
okay,
least a mile.
but if we adopt the planning fees were estimated to generate annually about $1.6 million. So the planning and building fees. Now, they may not do that in this environment, but it will still raise a significant amount of money if on May 6th, the board adopts those fees.
But
We don't
that
know what the
doesn't-
May revise is by the governor. We have no idea what we're actually going to get from the state.
There's still some holes in it.
And quite frankly, in 3 months' time, we went up, I think, $150,000 on cash carry. Cash carry is always a very volatile number until we actually get a close on cash carry. Historically, this board has never taken any sort of draconian actions until we had a close on cash carry, because that can fluctuate so significantly.
I appreciate it, because I've been pretty bummed since our department.
Well, a lot of the answer to that question has to do with the kinds of things that will be done at the department level for the next several months, and what kinds of plans and innovations you've accomplished.
5% reduction is successful. That's the only way you can make that 5% cut out of the department, so.
Okay, yes, Dennis.
Can I do this one more time?
Sure, of course.
I guess something that we're very concerned about is by the time we get the numbers from the state, and certainly if we go with the governor's numbers, going to lose a couple of positions. If we lose what the legislative analyst's office is recommending, we lose basically our entire narcotic stuff. Probation loses a person. DA's office loses a person. Angels Camp loses a person. So I guess what concerns me, by the time we have the real numbers from the state, we'll probably be 2 or 3 months into our current budget. So if that's going to require more of a cut, then I'm going to lose people on the county side of stuff too. So I don't know how we do this, but we got to try to figure out.
When we get into the preliminary budget, we'll make some best guess estimates. That's how we end up doing it.
Well, I would be shocked if the governor gives us a tremendous amount of hope in his May revise, but maybe it will give us a clue.
Well, the legislature will then react to that. Usually it's after the May revise that the serious budget negotiations take place. And then if you miss the June 30th deadline, what the state constitution calls for a budget, then it gets even more in earnest. But at least I think the issues at that point will be very clear. And there probably won't be a lot of issues on the table. There will be several significant issues that remain.
I would like to take up Dennis's, I think I got this hint, that maybe there are things that we ought to be doing before we slide into this, so that what we ultimately do is less draconian. There are things that this board could do, and I'm certainly interested in the thoughts of my colleagues as well as the department heads and others out there. You could do a hiring freeze. That usually saves a certain amount of money. It also punishes often people who have been saving money up to now, and rewards sometimes those who have full staffing. But I'm curious what people's thoughts are as to things we might do on the short term.
Well, whatever we decide the plan is, I would very much like to see it get kicked in like July 1st. So, like July 1st. So we're already into it, and maybe we'll have a pleasant surprise in September when the state's budget comes through. But if we don't, I don't want to take an even bigger hit to make up for not taking action immediately.
It's always the issue we have when we get into preliminary budget.
We will be holding those hearings on the 3rd and 4th of June, so we would be in a position, 4th and 5th, and we would be in a position to take action at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other feedback, comment, questions? Board? In that case, the study session is concluded. Thank you for coming.